The United Nations is sounding the alarm that they will have to lay off 7,000 corrupt bureaucrats, or dedicated public servants, amid a 20% budget cut as contributions dry up, most notably from the Trump administration. It is a great start. Where do we get more? Now, your first question might be, what the heck are 37,000 people doing at the UN? 37,000 is actually just the tip of the iceberg. The UN has an entire rat's nest of agencies who employ roughly 130,000 people in all. That includes 7,000 at the World Health Organization, famous for imposing experimental vaccines, 10,000 between UNICEF and FAO, famous for wiping out third world farmers and stealing school rehabilitation money, 18,000 in the UN Refugee Agency, famous for literally joining in the October 7th attack on Israel, and of course roughly 76,000 so-called peacekeepers who are basically Bangladeshis stationed in Africa where they watch civil wars and, according to a brutal 2005 report, engage in the kind of conduct that would make Jeffrey Epstein blush. Of course, almost none of these 130,000 UN employees are American, despite being based in New York so that Americans can cover the bills. In dollars, this army of corrupt grifters consumes roughly $67 billion per year, of which about 1 in 4 comes from the American taxpayer. So that's more than $15 billion, for perspective, about 5 times what we spend on the National Park Service. So what does America get for $15 billion aside from the waste and the fraud? So the UN was originally sold as a way for the U.S. to impose its will on the world. Of course, it flipped, since one country, one vote means tiny countries use the UN to gang up on the U.S. Essentially a cartel of midgets who have zero power on their own, but give them a vote and presto, they got leverage on the American people and the American taxpayer. So what do they do with this power? In its 80 years, the UN has imposed a parade of treaties that erode fundamental American rights, from overriding our laws on family rights, gender issues, Second Amendment, and juvenile justice, to mining, manufacturing, global warming, and of course the COVID lockdowns. One 1951 UN treaty is a key driver of the migrant crisis in the West, giving refugees rights that native-born could only dream of. So it's next, brought to you by Unchained.com. The question is, how do we ditch the UN? On February 4th, Trump signed an executive order giving 180 days to review American participation and funding of all international organizations, as in not just the UN, but the IMF, World Bank, OECD, NATO. There's a lot of them. Treasury Secretary Bessent recently said we need a, quote, reordering of these organizations so they promote America instead of fighting it. Personally, I'd rather just walk away. The U.S. is the global Goliath with a quarter of the world economy, more than half of global military spending. But stick us in some international organization and we flip from Goliath to sucker at the table. So the good news is Trump is skeptical of this entire so-called international community, UN and all. The bad news is I'm not sure he realizes they cannot be saved. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.